Welcome to the Foundry, where leaders are forged daily. I'm your host, George Roberts. Welcome back, entrepreneurs. Today we have Eric Chadderdon, founder of Gibby's Capital Investments and general partner on 368 apartment units. Welcome, Eric.
Welcome. Thank you so much, George. Happy to be here. I've been listening for a little while now and happy to be a guest. So
great. Thank you for listening. And I'd like to kick it off today by asking you about transitioning from the W-2, because this is something you've done very recently and very successfully. I know a lot of our listeners are interested in doing this. What are some of the tips and tricks? Did you have any pitfalls? Give us the whole story.
Yeah, sure. So as far as like transitioning away, I had been in my previous life's job for 12 years, and it was in the direct sales. And so, I knew that I was going to pivot and shift into the multifamily space, fairly quickly. It was last year in October. And so from that point, I was just really transparent at the very beginning. I was in a position of leadership, so I was able to slowly transition out, while other leadership kind of took the reins. But I was transparent with them and let them know that that was the end goal, and I think they appreciated the honesty. So I kept working for a good 7-8 more months, and then after we closed our first deal is when I made the full transition.
Great. I love that. And I think that that is important. I respect the integrity of letting the company know that you were on the way out, and also the timeline. That sounds like another best practice, so that they don't get the idea that they've got to go and replace you overnight. So you let them know that this is going to be a matter of months at the minimum.
Right. And, I didn't, you always have faith in yourself, especially when, taking on a new challenge. And of course, the new excited energy that I had was, we're going to go close a deal in our first month or 2 months in. And, it's not the most realistic thinking. So, I wanted to be logical about it. And so started the transition. I knew there was going to be a huge learning curve, learning about the multifamily space, and probably a lot of failures along the way. And there was a lot of failures. And so, but because I kind of let them know ahead of time, it allowed me to pursue, the multifamily space and learn the ins and outs before, having to rely on that as the income source.
That's amazing. And when you actually gave that declaration, then obviously this was before you had anything under contract. I think you had a coach. Certainly you saw great things on the horizon, but that's, I think, pretty awesome that you were ready to make that declaration, essentially sight unseen. You just know there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, and you were out to find it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I joined a mastermind group called the Multifamily Mindset. Great people, great coaches and mentors involved. And, I just trusted them and their process and their education program. And, I learned the ins and outs, committed to it, went all in, and, things worked out. So we're moving.
Great. And that was no small deal, by the way, 224 units in Dallas, Fort Worth.
Correct. Yeah. So it was 0 units at first in October. And then there was a good solid seven months or so, 8 months of just, hitting your head against the wall, learning curve, failures, LOI, best and final.
Yeah.
I think we made 7 or 8 best and finals before we got a deal. And so the emotional roller coaster was, super up and down. And I think one of the biggest things is I feel like a lot of people would quit normally before that, but, we pushed through and then closed the first deal. It was 224 units in Fort Worth, Texas. Beautiful property up there. And then what they say is right after the first one comes, they say the next one comes really quick. And I didn't know how that was going to happen, but 10 days after we closed, we got an LOI accepted on the second deal, which is 144 units in the southwest side of Houston. So
I just love that. And I think there are probably a lot of lessons there. The first I would imagine is that you're part of this mastermind Was that part of the reason you were able to take down such a large project the first time out?
Yeah, it was because it was just the way they taught us. And so I give the credit to them for sure. They taught us, it's Ryan Woolley and Tyler Devereaux, shout out to them, but they just taught us to, do these properties the right way and target big properties, and no challenge to the smaller ones. There's phenomenal returns on some of those smaller deals for sure, 20 units, 30 units, and there are some amazing returns. It's just the business model that we were taught is, you shoot for 75 or 100 plus unit complexes, and that's how we were taught, and that's what we do.
Yeah, and I love the message also about not being discouraged. I'll share with you my favorite lesson from economics is what is seen and what is unseen. I believe that was Henry Hazlitt, Economics in One Lesson. But you'll never know how many people out there stopped just before they became successful. And just look at you, 10 days later, you're on to number 2. Amazing. So then from this mastermind, then you founded Gibby's Capital Investments. I understand there's a story behind that name. Tell us the story.
Yeah. So, so everybody always asks us, what is Gibby's, right? It's, first off, we wanted something that stood out, but second, we wanted something that meant something to me and my team. And as far as my team goes, I'm actually partnered with Brett and Meaghan Davenport, who are going to be my future in-laws. I just got engaged to their daughter, Savannah. So we are the definition of a family operation, which is super cool. I'm working with people that I trust and love, and we are building something for our families moving forward. So we're excited about that. But the cool thing about the story with Gibby's is that Brett and Megan's first date, a long time ago, their first date was at Gibby's. It's a sports bar in Denver. I lived in Denver for 6 years, and it just so happens that I took their daughter Savannah. Before I even knew this, I took their daughter Savannah on like our second or third date to Gibby's. And so it's just crazy. We talked about it, and we were like, wait, we both did one of our first dates at Gibby's. It's got to be Gibby's.
That is just absolutely amazing. Of all the times I've asked somebody where the company name comes from, I think that's the winner.
Yeah,
so
and we are the last remaining Gibby's. Unfortunately, the Gibby's, the sports bar, didn't make it through COVID, which is sad, but we are the last remaining Gibby's now. So
wow, last Gibby's standing.
That's right.
So another thing that you've been doing amazingly well recently, I've noticed in your posts, you just got out on Yahoo Finance. Why don't you tell us the story about, first of all, how that came about and what that's driving for Gibby's?
Yeah, and it kind of came out of the blue, but I think where it starts is putting yourself out there. We've been starting this business and trying to figure out the best way to grow and scale. And I think a lot of it starts with your brand and your branding and marketing and putting yourself on social media. And so, I look at some of the big wigs in the industry, and they're very active on social media. And so, Meaghan Davenport is phenomenal as far as branding goes. She actually built this background you see behind me. But so she's great and very creative with that stuff. And so, we put a lot of content out, not as much as some, but we do as much as we can as individuals, and we have fun doing it. And so we just try to recap our wins and our losses, and we put both of them out there. And recently on one of our wins, we had just closed that 144 unit on the southwest side of Houston near Sugarland. And I just made a post about us closing it, and it was a gratitude post, giving a lot of thanks to the people that were involved. And someone just reached out and they said, we want to interview you. And I said yes. And it was pretty awesome. And so what it's led to is, something that I expected something like this, but I didn't know how much. But, a lot of people, as far as credibility goes, it's been bringing a lot of people that we know, to our website and to reach out, beckoning people to reach out to us a little bit more. So I think even today I've had 3 or 4 people reach out to me and saying they're interested in, getting in on future deals. And so, because I think at the bottom of my last post, I said, if you're interested in getting in future deals, then reach out to me. And I've had 3 or 4 just today do that. So it's bringing in more traffic, which is what we hoped for.
I love it. Getting out there on multiple channels. That's the way to do it, I'm sure. And I want to say, I believe that we were initially acquainted through Instagram.
Hmm.
And that's not one that I used much. To me, it just seemed kind of silly
Right.
until about a year ago when I noticed that, let's see, what was it? It was the Multifamily Investor Nation. They asked for your Instagram handle. And I thought, are you kidding me? So
Right.
I went out there and I saw, oh my goodness, it's actually grown. And you really can't discount these things. I'm on everything now, even TikTok. I don't even know what TikTok is. Uh, but seriously, I have somebody who goes and posts for me over there. And it's amazing. You never know what channel is going to bring you that next partner or investor. So really cool. Really
Absolutely.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's move on to how about markets? Now you're focused, you live in Texas, you're focused in Texas. I think you've got a couple of markets. You mentioned Dallas, Fort Worth, and Houston. Uh, Obviously, being able to invest in your backyard is part of the reason that you picked those markets, but why those two?
So Dallas Fort Worth. At the time, I was living in Dallas. Still have a house in Dallas. We Airbnb it now for extra income, but we just recently moved down to the North Houston area in the Woodlands. But part of the reason why I made the move was one for family. All my family lives here. So my fiance's parents, her brother, her sister, and then my parents sold all their assets in Oregon and moved down to the area as well. So just to be closer to family, but as far as the market, I mean, everybody knows it's no secret. Texas has been a hot market for a long time. We focus on Dallas, Fort Worth area, Houston, San Antonio, and we're open to some secondary, tertiary markets as well. But really, we're focusing on Texas, and we are starting to expand into other states as well, primarily Florida. It's not our main focus right now because there's a lot of deal flow in Texas. So there's a lot of inventory. So
Awesome. Well, call me up when you get out to Florida because that's where one of my holdings is and where I do expect to expand. Also, in a little bit in East Tennessee. I have an ambition to invest in my backyard here in Michigan, but that hasn't happened yet.
okay.
But definitely, yeah, if you need to partner up in Florida, uh, love, love, love Central Florida.
Great. Yeah, we
Now,
will for sure.
yeah, awesome. And so then let's move on further into your markets. How about tell us some of the things you like to do for fun in the markets? So if people end up in Houston, Texas, or Dallas, Fort Worth, what are some of the things that you enjoy?
You know, it's hard. I've had a hard time finding a hobby for a lot of years. Pretty much the only thing I've found for myself is I'm a big scuba diver. I like scuba diving. It's pretty much my only hobby, but you can't do that in Houston or Dallas. So I usually do that on vacations. But I usually just work. And so when I'm not working, I like to enjoy sporting events. I like NFL games, NBA games, baseball games, MLB games. So that's pretty much what we like to do on our off time is go enjoy some sporting events. And there's no shortage of professional sports teams in Texas.
Definitely no shortage at all. And I actually got certified maybe a year ago as a scuba diver. So I got the open
Very
water.
good.
It's an
There you go.
awesome, awesome hobby. All right. Well, I'd like to hear more about your deals. Maybe there were some twists and turns in the road. I know you mentioned 7 or 8 LOIs before you got the first deal.
Mhm.
Uh, Tell us maybe about a time that things look kind of dark and maybe you're able to get the deal back going.
Yeah, and as far as the deals themselves, I think I take it a lot back to the team. I mean, the cool thing about having targeting a big asset, 100 plus unit is there's enough good to go around on these things, right? And so, it's great to have a team and a group that supports you because, as we were growing and learning how this whole industry worked, there was times that each one of our legs on the Gibby's trio, Brett, Meaghan, or myself, there was times when each one of us, had our moments of not defeat, but of being down, right? Or being defeated for that day. And, that's the beauty of a team that you trust and love is you can lean on the other two legs. And that's what we did. I had my moments, Brett and Meaghan had their moments, but together we stayed strong through the whole thing because if we wouldn't have, then we would have stopped at LOI 6, then we wouldn't have, we wouldn't have gotten that next one accepted. So I think a lot of it comes down to the team, but I mean, it's just the definition of any learning curve. You have to be able to push through. And a lot of people, they think that it's completely possible, but I think it goes back to your mindset, and it goes back to your support system. If you don't have the mindset to be able to push through those things, then you might not be ready for this kind of challenge. So you got to work on yourself, develop yourself before taking on something like this. But I think a lot of it is mindset. So in our mastermind group, the very first building block is all about mindset. So
I love it. And speaking of partners, right? You mentioned you are partnered up. This is a trio with your mother and father-in-law. So that's
soon to be, yes.
soon to be. Okay.
Yeah.
But that's a very intimate relationship there. So do you have any advice for people who are maybe working with a spouse or another very close family member?
Yeah. In full transparency, I was not, at the very beginning, I was hesitant to do that. I was about to get engaged to their daughter, and which was my top priority. Right. And, the last thing I wanted to do was screw it up.
Yeah.
So, I was like, okay, so how am I going to go about this? And when, how it all started was we were frying a turkey last year on Thanksgiving. Brett was frying a turkey, him and I were frying it. And, I was telling him about this real estate thing and that I was doing since October. And it was kind of a crazy story, but, I was telling him about it with no intention of saying, hey, come be on my team. But after I was done, he thought the opportunity was incredible in the multifamily space. And he's like, you know what? And I was like, what? He's like, I should be on your team. And I was like, really? So I was hesitant, like I said, but we tested the waters for a few months and we just worked perfect together. Brett and Meaghan and I have completely different skill sets. All of us have completely different skill sets. Brett is our numbers guy. He's a master numbers guru, and he's phenomenal with spreadsheets. So he does our underwriting and helps with acquisitions and takes care of broker relationships. Meaghan has construction background and already has asset management experience already, and she can pretty much do it all. And then I have a sales background, and I'm big on relationships. And so I take care of capital raising, investor relations, a lot of marketing, content creation for social media, and those kind of things. And so, yeah.
So speaking of capital raising, I understand that you contributed a major chunk of capital to that first deal. So tell us about how, I want to say, how did you develop yourself to be a capital raiser? Obviously, being in sales was huge. Maybe you can take us through that journey a little bit. What did it take, or what did you have to change along the way to make those sort of compelling pitches?
Yeah. So, I honestly got pretty lucky with it. But after the first deal was done, I had tapped my resources. So I had to, start building the investor base all over. But really how it worked is I raised 2.5 million on the first deal, and that's how I got brought into that one, which is a lot, but like I said, I kind of got lucky. I had family and, multiple family members that were selling property. They were looking to do a 1031. So I raised it from family and friends.
Yeah.
So they were looking to do a 1031. Excuse me. They were looking to do a 1031, and the operators of the property were doing, it was Tyler and Ryan. They were doing a cost segregation study with some bonus depreciation. So great for tax benefits. And so anyway, they had a $2.5 million investor pull out last minute. I had 2.5 million that I had raised. It just kind of worked out. The stars aligned. I got brought in, and I'm also local to the property. And so, I help with asset management as well. But the big thing that shifted was on a $2.5 million investment. I mean, that return on that it's close to $200,000, if not a little bit more. And so, they're going to have $200,000 income without having to lift a finger as passive investors. And so before, they were active, they were having to fix toilets. They had properties before, and they sold their assets, and we're rolling them over. And so, they were answering calls from tenants. They were managing the properties themselves and killing themselves. They were putting countless hours. And so for me, it was just really eye-opening and really cool, and a really big mindset shift to see them go from active to now making 200 plus grand a year completely passively. And that's when it really changed my mindset. We are offering a phenomenal service to these people. We are giving them phenomenal opportunities to create passive income and even generational wealth for their families.
Yeah, that is awesome. And it's not really, again, something like you're selling. Totally misspoke there, because sales on the one hand maybe towards the delivering of pitches, but this is really about developing relationships. Do
Mhm.
you want to tell us a little bit about how, obviously there's some overlap there in terms of being compelling and being a great people person, but some ways in which they're different, and maybe you can help people who may have that sort of a sales background who think that they
Right.
should try their hands in the multifamily space.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to from the sales side, right? You know, you always feel like you're having to sell something when you're starting out, but with this, it's different. And I truly do think that the best salespeople aren't ever selling anything; they're building relationships and building trust, and then the buyers want to buy with them. You know, and I come from, you know, the home automation, satellite industry, and also the solar industry. I ran a solar dealer for a number of years. And you know, I think that the top salesmen are the best people, are the best with people, and they care about people the most. And so when you're that solution oriented and you want to help the other person so much get in a better spot, then it's very easily portrayed, and usually they're the ones that get the most sales. So if you just translate that same skill over and you just continue to care about people and put other people first, and you know, you care about investor returns first, and you care about investor communication and investor relations, and making sure that they get the returns that you promised, and putting all the work into, you know, to honor your word and all of that stuff, then it's going to show at the end. And if you can end up giving them what, you know, you not promise, but if you can give them, you know, give them what you said the projected returns would be, then the likelihood of them reinvesting is going to be significantly higher. So
Yeah, I love that. And I think that there's really a lot to be said there for being solution oriented. A lot of people who may be in single family real estate, for example, it's all about providing solutions. And if you're out there wondering, hey, can I make the jump into multifamily? There you have it. You're still providing solutions, whether you are negotiating, trying to get the best financing, particularly important when you're doing seller financing, or whether you're working with investors and trying to get them to realize, and this is one thing that I realized myself over a long stretch of years, a good single family landlord is in many cases going to have trouble beating the sort of passive returns you can get with the economies of scale. And of course, it's all projections. But if you look at historical returns, you know, certainly I wasn't getting a 15, 17, or 19% IRR when I was managing my own single family rentals.
mhm.
So I would very highly recommend a lot of people out there who are fixing the toilets. You need to stop doing that. You need to talk to somebody like Eric who can get you in on the other end.
Absolutely appreciate that.
So let's see. Let's talk about advice. So here's an opportunity in this phase of the interview to sort of give back. You're somebody who has, in a relatively short period of time, experienced a great deal of success. No surprise. I understand that when you were in your W-2 position, you had 60 reports at one point. So tell us along the way in real estate, what was the best advice that you've heard? And what is the worst advice?
Well, that's a tough question. You know, I think as far as what I've heard, probably can't think of two off the top of my head, but I could give some. As far as like the best advice that I could give, I would say for sure, if you know, find people that you want to be like, and go surround yourself with them. You know, I joined a mastermind group and I wanted to be, you know, just like the people that ran the mastermind. And, you know, I ended up getting to do a deal with them, which was phenomenal. You know, I found a way into that deal, and that actually got my foot in the door to learn more directly from them, be surrounded by them, and started the relationship. And so, and then I met another couple, Lisa and Greg Parrish, through that deal. And, you know, they helped sponsor the second deal. And so it's just a big relationship game. So, you know, they say that you're the product of your surrounding, right? So if you're hanging out with four slums, you're going to be the fifth. But if you're hanging out with four millionaires, you're also going to be the fifth. So for me, best advice is find someone that's doing what you wish you could do, or that you wish you were doing, and just go put yourself around them. Be a student of the game, be a sponge, and learn as much as you can from them. So that's the best. As far as the worst advice, just, you know, I don't have anything that I was told that was the worst, but just don't quit. That's another piece. Just don't quit, because there was times when I did want to. Like I said, full transparent. There was times after we were submitting multiple LOIs, I was like, how are we going to compete with the big dogs? How are we going to, we got in best and final so many times and then lost. It was defeating. It was, it was really tough at times, but you have to be able to have that internal drive and passion and desire to keep going. And you have to figure out what that is for you. So for me, it's my family. My family is something that's really important to me. I want to be able to spend more time with them. We're about to get married and start a family. I would love to have the foundation set so I can be present for all of those special moments that a new child brings to the table. And next, I think a big passion of mine is really making an impact on the residents of our communities and their lives. Because you have to think, these properties that we acquire, this is where they call home, right? This is where they go back to every single night. Some of these families have 1 or 2 kids or more in an apartment, right? And so for us to be able to go in and acquire the property, improve their unit, upgrade their unit, make it nicer and more homey, with a premium product, and really upgrade the community in general, and then make it something that they can come home to and have pride in. It just gives me a really good feeling at the end of the day. And so, you have to figure out what that is for you that will keep you going, and, look at your why, and that's what's going to push you at the end of the day. So
I love it. And at this point is usually when I ask the interviewees, send us out with a heartwarming story from your entrepreneurial journey. But between the name of your company and just loving the opportunity to provide decent quality housing for people that they can take pride in, I think we've got that covered. So at this point, I would ask you, hey, have you got any questions for me?
Yeah, I do. You've got this amazing podcast here, the Foundery, and Gibby's Capital, Meaghan Davenport and I were looking at starting a podcast one day. And how'd you get into it? What are some tips? I'm sure there's other people that are listening that might want to start a podcast one day. And so I think we're looking at launching next year, in the early phases of next year. Whatever tips you can give, I will greatly appreciate.
Sure. And it's a great thing to do. I love it. It's a lot of work, but at the outset, it's not too bad. You buy yourself a microphone, you find an RSS feed, and you have some Zoom meetings, and you just get started. As far as what it takes to make it successful, a real passion, it's got to be a labor of love. And when I chose the name for the podcast, The Foundry, Where Leaders Are Forged Daily, entrepreneurship is something that's very near and dear to my heart. When I look at people like Steve Jobs, people like Henry Ford, who didn't even launch Ford Motor Company until he was 40 years old, you see some people who really found their way in the world when they started executing on their own vision. So going out there, and I literally did everything on my own, from the graphics, the interviews, literally the production, 100%. So I think if I was going to give you some advice, is start soon, start now. I wish I would have started 6 months earlier. I'd be a whole lot further. And don't let it be daunting, right? I mean, you can release as infrequently as you want. You can do one a month, if that gets you out there. I had my wife interview me for edition number 1. So if you go look it up, I am literally the first guest on the Foundry. Do whatever it takes to get out there, to get that material, but also don't be afraid to partner up. Just as multifamily is a team sport. I wish I would have gotten my virtual assistant on this sooner. She's amazing and has been a great big help. I still do the production myself, but it's amazing to have her upload everything for me, find all of the clips. I'm telling you, it's 100% load off. And now I'm back to a twice weekly cadence with her help. So definitely you want to go out and make sure that you are that you're not doing all the work yourself, whether that means
Okay.
either having somebody produce it for you or to help you in some other aspect. It becomes a crushing burden if you do it all yourself.
Okay. Great advice. I
Well, anyway,
appreciate
thank
that.
you. I feel like, wow, you asked me about podcasting. That's something I could talk about all day long because it's an amazing thing. And the other thing I would say to people is realize you don't have to start your own podcast. It's a great thing. And for me, I think the greatest value I've got out of it is just the people that I've met.
Hmm.
It's an amazing way to meet people. And when I spend 30 or 45 minutes with somebody like Eric, I get a lot smarter. And I feel like the conversation goes a lot deeper when we have it as a podcast. It's too easy to just sort of shoot the breeze when you have those 1 hour introductory calls. So definitely
For
do it if
sure.
it's something that's a labor of love to you. And remember, going on other people's podcasts for me is the greatest privilege in the world, because to be able to just sit back and knowing the moment I leave the meeting that it's done.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure I'll appreciate that. I appreciate that come that moment. So
Exactly. Well,
yeah.
anyway, Eric, I want to thank you for an outstanding interview. Of all the people who have an amazing story to tell, I love everything from the story behind your company's name to your mission in the world. Thank you so much for being a guest on the Foundry.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you letting me on here, and it was great to connect.